Hello and welcome to New Frontiers on CCTV International. I'm Ji Xiaojun in Beijing. In our program today, we're continuing with our series about the Wudang Mountains and their Taoist culture. The basic principle in the design and construction of the numerous Taoist temples in the Wudang Mountains was that they blended with the natural scenery. As a result, a marvelous harmony exists between the temples and the surrounding peaks, slopes, crags, and gullies. One building, more than any other, has become the focus of attention. It is the Golden Hall, and it gives off a dazzling radiance that can be seen near and far.
At dawn, Taoists living on Mount Wudang welcome the first rays of sunlight at Lion Peak. Behind it is Heavenly Pillar Peak, the highest peak on the mountain. Nearly 600 years ago, in the year 1413, Ming Dynasty Emperor Yongle heard that auspicious five-colored clouds had appeared around a golden summit on Mount Wudang. That year, a stream of glowing reports poured forth from the mountain, informing the emperor of the appearance of no less than 11 propitious omens. All of this seemed fortuitous, but what did it really mean for Mount Wudang? In the winter of 2007, a large snowstorm blanketed the mountain, bringing with it an unearthly stillness. In the year 1412, Emperor Yongle dispatched his son-in-law Mu Xin to Mount Wudang on a special mission. When he arrived at the mountain, there was a storm, and the snow-filled sky reminded him of Princess Changning. 6 years earlier, Mu Xin, who was the son of Mu Ying, the military commander of Yunnan, had married the emperor's young daughter, thereby making the Mu family kinsmen of the imperial family. Who could have guessed that on a cold winter's day just a few years later, Changning would suddenly fall gravely ill and die? After burying his wife, Mu Xin became greatly concerned about his future.
木心是明朝开国功臣，乾宁公穆英的小儿子。他是受到很好的家教的，他饱读诗书，琴棋书画物不精通，所以说呢，他在朱棣登基的那一年就被选为朱棣的小女儿长令公主的驸马。
However, Mu Xin's trepidations about the possible repercussions of the death of his wife, the emperor's daughter, were unnecessary, as the Emperor Yongle did not condemn him in any way. Instead, he placed him in charge of building temples at the imperial Taoist site at Mount Wudang.
明朝政权呢，从朱元璋开始，就依靠两种人来保卫天下，一就是依靠朱元璋的儿子，朱家的子孙；第二个呢，就是依靠朱家的女婿。
When Mu Xin arrived at Mount Wudang, he went to stay at Yushu Palace, which was dedicated to the god known as the Mysterious Warrior. He made Yushu Palace his headquarters for the construction work. As a member of the imperial family, Mu Xin clearly understood the real reason Yongle had launched this ambitious building project, and he was also well aware that an imperial son-in-law who had lost his wife could survive the treacherous palace intrigues only if he had the strong support of the emperor himself. He needed to find as many opportunities as possible to express his gratitude to Emperor Yongle. Mu Xin had the words Nanyan inscribed on the two ceremonial halls at Nanyan Palace, and they can still be seen today. This style of calligraphy is known as the Taige style. It was the emperor's favorite calligraphic style, and Mu Xin chose it for all the plaques on which the names of the temples were inscribed. However, Mu Xin was extremely careful, and so he didn't stop at this. In 1413, Emperor Yongle received a painting of the god Xuanwu, the god of Mount Wudang, surrounded by a 5-colored circle of light. Mu Xin went to great pains to ensure that auspicious signs would be seen on the summit of Mount Wudang virtually every month.
朝廷又把这个彩图编印成书，在全国发行，实际上就是宣传朱棣取得天下。 取得全国的统治是所有的武当山玄天上帝的保佑，那么木星完成这个任务完成得很好，所以他受到朱棣的特别的奖赏。
After Mu Xin had been at Mount Wudang for a year, the emperor rewarded him for his work. The fact that he was given this reward demonstrated that he had fully grasped the implicit yet subtle significance of his assignment. One morning in the year 1416, after a heavy downpour of rain, Mu Xin received news from Beijing that a government ship on a special mission had left Beijing and was heading south on the Grand Canal toward Mount Wudang. Emperor Yongle had issued an imperial edict for the ship's captain. It read, "You must proceed with the utmost caution and travel only in daylight and only when the weather conditions are favorable. The ship must be kept clean and in good order at all times." In addition, the emperor made it clear that no fires were to be lit on board for cooking purposes.
The official ship made its way down the Grand Canal. Obviously, since the emperor had personally issued the orders, the ship's mission had to be a special one. So, what was it carrying?
This is the base station for the cable car that ascends the mountain to Middle Taoist Temple on Heavenly Pillar Peak. The trip by cable car takes about 30 minutes. From the point where the cable car arrives, one must still take a mountain path past Taige Palace and South Heaven Gate, and then climb a steep flight of more than 200 stairs before finally reaching Golden Hall. The tourists attracted here by the fame of Golden Hall are enthralled by what they see. One can hardly imagine how craftsmen 600 years ago were able to carry all the materials needed to build the hall up the steep mountain through the mist. But having done so, they then built a palace that rivals the buildings of the Forbidden City at an elevation of 1,613 meters above sea level. After the main buildings were completed in the year 1416, through an imperial edict, Emperor Yongle ordered the building of Taige Palace. This meant that the multitude of craftsmen who had already been away from their homes for many years would now have to begin work on the most difficult project of all. Even today, the stunning copper and gold Golden Hall dazzles the eye. It is, without a doubt, the most magnificent part of Taoist Palace, and it is the largest golden hall in China. The building faces east. Its roof features a double-eave construction technique reserved for the imperial family. It is very similar in shape and structure to Taoist Palace in the Forbidden City, and it is the only other building in China built to the stringent specifications of that famous structure. But the story of how Golden Hall was built on Heavenly Pillar Peak is shrouded in mystery. Some people feel that Golden Hall was pre-built and then transported whole to Mount Wudang. It is certainly true that when it was shipped to the mountains 600 years ago, hoisting technology was still very primitive. The palace weighs 50 tons, and even if it was possible at the time to ship it by boat from Beijing to Mount Wudang, it's hard to imagine how it could ever have been hoisted up to the top of Heavenly Pillar Peak. Some experts believe that it was designed to be built in sections in Beijing, and that the sections were then shipped to the mountain and assembled on site.
运上去呢，如果是分解了，这个运上去，打了包了，装了箱了，抬上去问题不大。4个人一抬，如果说抬个轿子也抬上去了嘛，抬个轿子也是200斤呢，连轿子带人，那他200斤一个箱子抬上去，那问题不大。
Lu Huaqing is the chief engineer of the Mount Wudang Ancient Buildings Construction Brigade. Today he's brought some new members of the brigade to Golden Hall to familiarize them with the work of conserving the ancient building.
为啥我们看我们原来的它这个经历上是一柱一板带复式都带得起的，这一块这个单林的，那都只是说它后来这个维修的一种痕迹。我给你看为啥我说它这个房子以前是没有的？这个地方你看没？还有个栏板呢，是以前这个装过去的，就很简单了，你看没？这个栏板和那个栏板应该是叠住的。
光金链。对，
光金链，这个整个以前的我们的光金链，那么这个应该是。 主要是我外祖父那时候非常年轻时候，他带了一帮人在这个修的这2边个配盖这个房子。你看我们从这个痕迹上看，它。
In order to emphasize the sacredness of the site, when Golden Hall was built in the Ming Dynasty, it didn't have the side halls we see today. It stood entirely alone on Heavenly Pillar Peak, on a 160 square meter stone platform. The statues of the deities, the sacrificial vessels, and the altar inside the palace were all made of cast gold.